Then the other question would be, if I'm a company, what do I do? Do I go for the company, the brand of the company, or do I go for a person? Because my sales theory is always people buy from people, actually. So how do you do it?
Well, personally, I do a parallel strategy. I have my personal branding, I have my corporate branding, and well, they are very intertwined, but it's two separate profiles. But if you're going for corporates, I would recommend using a lot of faces and using people in your strategy.
And on the product one you sell, but on the private one you don't sell. You
I don't
try
do
and
hard
stay
selling.
the balance.
I don't do hard selling.
You don't do hard selling.
Soft selling.
Soft selling. Right.
But
you
I
kind
do
of
sell.
lure them into the trap.
Yes, and I think that I will engage them more in the story, in the backstory about how the product is made and what goes into the brand and the back business and everything, and it makes people appreciate more what you're doing for them.
The first thing in terms of where you go, the easy answer to that is where your customer's attention already is.
Yeah.
And I think most people do that wrong. Use an example. Most people in a B2B environment think that Facebook's entirely wrong. The thing is, people are on Facebook, and you want to target people. You can target them based upon job description, industry, etc. And if anything, they're spending more time on there. It could be when they're at home or at the weekend or at lunch or whatever. But I mean, for me, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. In early 2018, they're the platforms that we can get predictable, reliable, scalable.
And you mix Facebook and Instagram because of the nature, because they're tied in together. It doesn't matter.
So I mean, the one thing to always be aware of is that you do need different strategies. You need to be contextual and native to the platform. Yeah. So don't just create one thing and throw it.
So no URLs, it needs to be native upload, native content.
Yeah, and I mean, it's different content. So you might try different approaches on Facebook and different approaches on LinkedIn.
Do you have an example, like a customer that does?
Yeah, sure. An easy one might be, for you, for example, you might have on your Facebook page a whole episode of this show. But on Instagram, you might have a 60-second snippet, and actually you drive people to the Facebook page. And that's a really easy, simple example. It all comes down to how people consume content. So Instagram's obviously inherently a visual.
Yeah, really.
A visual.
It does remind me of this GE page, which has 300,000 followers, and it's just pictures of big oil rigs and beautiful pictures. They did a really good job there.
Yeah, and I mean, but then if you go on to Facebook, you'd want to implement a really different strategy. So coming back to your question about what platforms or the Facebook and Instagram being connected, if you're running a paid strategy on Facebook, it's really easy to roll it out to Instagram. So it makes sense to do so to test out those different placements. But yeah, to make sure that you do actually do a different strategy on both.
When we talk about ads, we very quickly get to something called lead magnets, right?
Okay.
So most people, they think I need to get customers, so they think of their target group, if at all they do that properly, and then they go write the white paper, whatever they make, and it's going to spend them 2-3 months making it. Is that a good strategy for you, or you say?
So I mean, I think first of all, for anyone watching, it's really worthwhile for you to define, what do you define as a lead magnet?
Lead magnet for me is like the first piece of content you create, so people are that you want to get into your funnel are attracted and they leave their name. It's like the first step of the whole value chain.
Sure, so for me, I wouldn't actually class that as a lead magnet.
Yeah.
I would class a lead magnet as probably a downloadable or consumable asset that you've created.
I think we say the same thing, but
kind of. So what I mean by that is, if you are, say,
I'm from the continent, which makes things more complex for you.
I'll give you an example though. But in a home improvements or a B2C environment, a restaurant, an activity centre, something like that, you can actually go cold to sold. So what I mean by that is, if your offer is good enough. And I don't mean a discount, it can literally be as simple as a free quote, free estimate, but if your offer is good enough and you target the right people with the right creative, you can literally go and get their information and get them as a customer pretty quick.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell a car, for example, your lead magnet may be some information about spec, about finance, about a test drive.
Yeah.
And I think coming back to, is a lead magnet good or bad? The answer is it depends. What type of business are you? What are your aims?
I had an Italian colleague and he would say, Michael, on the pipeline, it depends. But it's true.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree.
I know most people really, really dislike it in any marketing sales environment when someone asks, how much is it or what's that going to do? And you answer, it depends.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it does.
Yeah. that's when you try multiple and see what happens. And
yeah, I mean, I think the other thing with
sorry, go on. No, I want to say because I was this ROI thing in the beginning.
Sure.
I got stuck, and I'm thinking. So when you say depends, then I would ask you. So what about the ROI then? How would you tackle that one?
Sure.
Because if I spend $1,000 with you, let's say £1,000, and then you say, well, I had 20 people clicking on it, I can imagine I would feel bad and say, dude.
Sure. So let's start with the two most important metrics for any marketing: lifetime value of the customer and customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Unless you have those two things on lock, it's going to be really hard to measure, to scale, to actually know, is this working or not? Obviously, you're in a sales, you're a sales guy. If you go to a restaurant and they only count their first dining in as the lifetime value, and they spend say £50, they're not actually looking at that 2-3 year window.
Where you would come back.
And then you get to a point where they're like, oh, we'll pay you 5p to acquire a customer, and it's like, hey, the numbers are never going to work. So those two things are vital, and then from that you can actually plan out, okay, what strategies and what methodologies, which funnels, which techniques are worth actually investing in.
So how do you balance between the stories and the feed actually?
Okay, there are apps where you can already preview your pictures and your feed. And so I know already on beforehand which next picture will come tomorrow.
And you do it in like batch production, because I believe in production.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying, I'm going to do this, and I set up a week up front. So what would be the advice?
Because about 1 week,
My struggle is I'm then during the day thinking, oh, I need to do this, and I know it's not the right way.
Yeah, no, I prepare my social media content on Sunday.
Sunday.
Sunday afternoon, yes.
So you use like a canva.com or something, and you just produce all the pictures, get it already?
Canva. I use another app like Unum, or you have also Preview or Plan or Schedulegram. You have different apps to already preview the pictures.
So Sunday you set everything up, and then the stories, you do that during the week?
During the day, yes.
All the time?
No, not all the time. But I know already which events are taking place or meetings. And like, for instance, January is for me the networking month. Yeah. So I will talk about networking. I will talk a lot about networking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And now I realize why you're so much events, because you organize events. Good God. I'm such an idiot sometimes. Okay. So, and that actually brings business, Instagram, for you? Or is it more LinkedIn? Or because I'm guessing you're balancing them all out? And
yes, I'm really a fan of LinkedIn and Instagram. On Instagram, I get a lot of collaboration questions, and also questions to give Instagram workshops or Instagram training.
Of course.
And on LinkedIn, it's more, it's different type of connection. I would say it's a more formal way to connect with new contacts. And I get more event requests on LinkedIn.
What would you say, for instance, LinkedIn, B2B, classic there, but B2C, you shouldn't go there? What? Give us some advice.
Yeah, the most important thing is to just take a look at what works for me, what do I love working with, and what works in my market, what works for my competitors. Depending on the business you're in, the sector you're in, you have to check what works over there, and you have to make a mix between both of them.
So I'm going to ask you a tough one. Automation or not? And how far do I stretch it?
You have to automate some tasks, but when somebody sends me a text message or sends me a message via LinkedIn, and I know it's automated, I'm almost never going to respond. But
you're saying that what you could do then is automate the planning, the scheduling, the posts, all of that. That's okay to automate.
You have to automate to make it scalable, because otherwise it's too much of a hassle. But you have to give it a very personal touch. You have to know what to automate and what not. Yeah. If you're going to connect with someone or ask about them, you have to ask it personally and not just as an extra question to your big sales pitch that will follow as a LinkedIn message, for example.